Good morning, everybody. We are the Talking Hats. It's not going to be in the video, but this is take two. Had a little technical difficulties here to start the show, but it's all good. I like to keep it real, so putting that out there. It has been a huge week in sports, especially the NFL. The biggest week since, I think, even bigger than the Super Bowl. More action this week, more shifting of the balance of power this week. Just some craziness going on. So I want to jump right into. We've got two segments. We're going to start off with the NFL. That's going to take up the entire segment, segment one, and then we can jump into the Wizards and other things we usually talk about. But let's go ahead and get this show on the road. We need to start right here.
Yes, I have to say, Denver. They pulled it off. I mean, we were saying that it's going to be Aaron Rodgers going. Then
yeah, that was a bad take by me. I stood I leaned into that one hard. And last week I did on the last week's show. I was like, I don't have any doubts, talking all kinds of trash. Aaron Rodgers is going to Denver,
but how could you not? Because Green Bay actually put their money where their mouth is. They actually said, "All right, we're going to do this. We're going to stick together," and they did it.
Yeah.
If they didn't do it, then Aaron Rodgers would have definitely went to Denver. That was just a.
Here's the thing. I think as per usual, he was just being full of crap. I don't think he ever intended to leave. But being the master salesman that he is, snake oil salesman, I should say, he made all of us, and especially me, believe that he seriously considered it. I don't think he did. I don't think he ever really seriously considered leaving. But he sold it. He sold it very well.
I would have to say Seattle did pull the okie doke on a lot of people. They're like in the beginning, like, oh, Russell Wilson's going to stay here. We're not going to entertain anything. And you started hearing that Washington wanted to give up 3 first-round picks, and
yeah, they made it. They made the offer.
They made the offer, and then all of a sudden Denver kind of went like, you know what, we can do one better. We're going to give you some.
And the thing is with that, Washington made the offer, but the choice ultimately was Russell Wilson. He had the no trade clause.
Yep.
And even though Washington made that offer, Washington made a better offer than Denver did, but he wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a common theme in this segment. Quarterbacks not being interested in Washington.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think he picked the better place to go.
Oh, no question.
I mean, because we were having some sort of a Twitter battle between, I don't know the Twitter handler's person's name. He was saying that, what's the reason if I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl winning team. I'm like,
oh, that was my man Tolu. That dark meat hook on Twitter. Tolu, I'm shouting you out.
Yeah, because I read it and I was like, well, Dale and him were having a response back, and then I was like, let's just say if Russell Wilson was traded last year, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
No,
we would not be having this conversation about going to the Super Bowl or not, because I think Von Miller would have stayed. I don't think they would have traded Von Miller.
Yeah, they wouldn't have needed to.
They wouldn't have needed to, and at the end of the day, they had a stacked offense. I mean, with Russell, yes, Teddy Bridgewater is there, but he's not as Russell Wilson's miles and leaps ahead of him.
And look, one of their games got flexed to prime time. If it wasn't the last game, it was the second to last game, the penultimate game that got flexed to prime time because they were just outside the playoffs. They had a legitimate. If they beat Kansas City, they were a playoff team. So imagine adding Russell Wilson to that already fine. The roster's fine. They were missing a quarterback.
Yeah, so, and now they have a quarterback.
Now there's no question.
And now Denver, in my opinion, and Dale, you can chime in once the thing is that they're favorites to be one of the Super Bowl. They're probably contending to go to the Super Bowl next year. I mean, in the draft, I don't foresee them concentrate. Maybe they might give him a weapon or two for offense just to bolster.
We can get into that down the line and later in the show too, but. Yeah, keep on there up their draft needs.
Because I honestly think that if let's say Von Miller does not come back to Denver because of this trade, I think they're going to go a defensive person, maybe even a defensive lineman. Because right now their defensive line for the draft is stacked. They have a lot of good defensive players coming out this year, and the way the trade worked out, it worked out in Denver's favor in a way that because I think what are they picking in the draft? Are they picking after?
So they still have a second round pick. They gave up their first. They still they actually have 10 picks in the draft. And this is reportedly one of the deeper drafts in recent history, just outside of the quarterback position.
Right.
So this is going to be one of those drafts where teams with a bunch of holes can go ahead and fill those needs. Denver is not a team with a bunch of holes, but with some really strategic and smart picks here, they can make an already stacked roster just
even better.
Just knock it out. And
Yeah,
what
because
their biggest need, I think,
mhm,
and it's only a need because they can get better at the position. What they have there is fine, but on their offensive line, they have a need at right tackle. And like I said,
mhm.
it's fine, but they can get better there. I'd probably
Yeah.
go there with the first pick unless they don't get Von Miller. Then you got to go pass rusher with the first pick.
You think they might go after Sheriff? Make Sheriff switch positions?
No, because that's a lot of money to pay a guess. Um, so I don't think they go that route. I think Sheriff's going to end up in Cincinnati. That
Mm,
that all signs are
yeah,
pointing to that, and that's the biggest need.
right.
They're going to spend a lot of money on that position, and they should.
Mhm.
They need to.
Yeah, and I was just blown away by the way like Denver was like very strategic and scalpelish when they made that trade because I think they wanted to see who was going to offer what because people talk like everybody talks and we may not hear it but they talk behind the scenes like oh Washington tried to give up this much or some other team tried to give up this much and Denver's like all right I mean you have to give credit to Elway. I mean Elway
No,
did
no,
what he
you
had to.
don't. No, you don't. You know why? And
Why?
this is and this is, don't feel bad for not knowing this because nobody does. They did this in secret.
Hmm.
They pushed John Elway out. He is
How?
no longer making decisions for this team. He is
Really?
only involved in the team in title only. He's with the team as a
Oh.
consultant. That's his only title now. And that's just, to me, those sorts of titles are just honorary. He is
Huh.
not calling the shots anymore. George Payton made this move. George Payton
Really?
deserves all the credit.
All
He
right.
made this happen.
Wow.
But
So
what
maybe.
what this really came down to, though, and this is why Washington never stood a shot, is because Russell Wilson had a choice. He chose Denver. It
Mhm.
was his choice to come. This probably wasn't the best trade package Seattle could have got from him, but this is where he wanted to be, which is
Mhm.
a little surprising to me. I'm a little surprised that Sierra wanted to come here. Maybe they actually came to the area though and saw what it's really all about. If you
Right.
only hear about Denver, all you picture is mountains. If you come
Right.
here though, it's a very metropolitan city. Very, and the suburbs are very nice too. If you visit here, it's hard to want to leave, and that happened to me in 2008. When I came here, I never wanted to leave, and now I'm here. So I get it. If he came here, I get it. And then seeing the team too, that the team was really only a quarterback away. They're now the fourth place favorite to win the Super Bowl next year,
Yeah.
and that's legit. They deserve that.
Yep. And don't be surprised if they're leading in certain categories next year, like at least top five in passing, top five in rushing. I
Yeah,
mean, don't be surprised. Do not. I mean, people might think that oh, Russell Wilson may have like because they're a similar offense to Seattle. It's just different. It's just the
yeah.
terminology is
Good
pretty much
call.
different.
Good
Yeah.
call.
I mean,
Well, going into next year, who knows what the offense is going to look like under Hackett. This is going to be a new scheme, but I would imagine, especially being a new coach, getting an elite quarterback like Russell Wilson, I would
right.
imagine he's going to tailor it to suit his
Mhm.
needs.
Yeah.
I don't expect anything less in that
I mean,
regard.
it's like this. If you want to win a Super Bowl, you better do what you want to do. You better trade Taylor
Do what
too.
he wants.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
if he says we're going to do this, you just say, all right, this goes out the window. We're going to do
yeah,
what you do. And just, sprinkle in what you need. But I don't think, because if you look at Denver's history has been always a zone running scheme. It's almost like it's almost like an offshoot of the West Coast offense with a little bit of a twist to it. So at the end of the day, that's their bread and butter. That's what they're known for. And if they're trying to switch to something else, they've tried it. It never works. It just doesn't work.
yeah. And I think the
And
coach actually mentioned that in one of his interviews that we plan
mhm,
to do some stretch zone runs because that's going to suit Russell Wilson's abilities the best,
mhm.
getting him on the move to pass, like
and I
calling that
also
into the plays instead of making them
yeah,
scramble.
and I also think Jared Judy is going to be a top five receiver in this league now because of Russell Wilson. Because what people don't understand, I mean, I would say this is my personal opinion. I think Russell Wilson is an underrated quarterback when it comes to passing the ball because he gets the ball where it needs to get to. I mean, he has a pretty, he has a very accurate arm. I would put it that way. And with that growth, that's the next step in Jared Judy's growth is a quarterback that can get him the ball because he's so fast. Like he's really he runs a really crisp route and he's
Yeah,
just fast.
he's
And
he's
if
an
that,
excellent route runner.
yeah,
Excellent.
and if that ball and I also think he's a timing receiver. Once he breaks, if that ball is there, he catches it. That's a sure touchdown. And I don't see anything happening with people saying, "Oh, this thing." They're going to be scary next year. I'm going to give him 11 wins, 11 wins next year, just by adding him alone.
If you're setting the bar there, I'll take the over. I think they're going to be there. to me, they are the best team in the AFC West now, just because they're so complete. They don't have Mahomes is probably still the best quarterback. And that's debatable. I would still pick Russell Wilson over him, but you can debate that. What you can't debate is how complete this team is.
Yes.
You know, both sides of the ball, they're set, especially if they re-sign Alexander Johnson on defense.
Oh.
If they bring that attitude back, he was hurt a lot of last year, but if they bring his attitude back to set the tone on the defense, you got Justin Simmons too, Bradley Chubb. I think they're going to bring back Vaughn. I think this move, bringing in Russell Wilson, makes Vaughn want to come back. He immediately, before, like, he must have gotten some wind that the news was going down, because right before it went down, he started posting about wanting to come back. So I fully expect that to come into play. Yeah. The team is just, they're set. Kansas City has holes on defense. The Chargers, they didn't make the playoffs, so you can't really bring them into the discussion until they do. The Raiders, they did make it, but they've got a new coach in McDaniels who, I'm not going to say anything bad about the Raiders because my guy Champ is there now, but I think everybody knows how I feel about McDaniels. Yeah. So to me, the Broncos are the favorite in the West, most complete team, and I really expect them to be there at the end of it.
Yeah, so you brought up the Chargers. They got Khalil Mack now from the Bears, and I don't know. And I said this in the tweet. I don't know what the Bears are doing. They're just being like, that was a horrible trade. You don't trade. I mean, yes, I understand they had a down year because of the thing, but he was a perennial like all-star. Like, you can't do that. You can't trade a piece. That's what Oakland is kicking themselves now. I mean, I'm sorry, the LA, are they still Oakland or LA? Vegas, sorry. Yeah. There's so many. Like,
there was a show where I called them Oakland All Show. I watched one of our shows back. I was calling them Oakland All Show. You know what's worse than that? Getting off on a tangent. I think it was 2-3 shows ago. I was calling Brooklyn the Nets. I was calling them Jersey. I was calling them Jersey all show. Yeah. So all these changing locations, you know. I was doing it too.
Hey, brother, we remember the good old times when they were called that. It gets stuck with us. But the Vegas, they're kicking themselves now because they don't have him on defense. If you literally look at it, like, they traded him and now they're struggling. They have a decent defense. I'm not saying that they don't.
Who's that? The Raiders?
The Raiders, yeah. I mean, that trade.
Last season, before Gruden got fired, he was in full desperation mode trying to get Khalil Mack back. He traded him. And then last season, he was trying to get him back. He was going hard at the Bears trying to get him back. So that's funny now.
Now, the funny thing is now, I think the San Diego Chargers may have one of the best defensive lines now. God, the LA Chargers. Jeez.
See, it's so easy to do. I think I did that one show too.
All the fans in Los Angeles who root for the Chargers, my bad.
Nobody in LA roots for the Chargers. That's the problem. You don't think about them being there because their fans don't care either. They need to go back down the coast.
Yeah, but they have the 1-2 punch now that they needed. If Khalil Mack stays healthy, they're going to be scary. And if Joey Bosa, I mean, they missed out on the playoffs by a few games. And in all honesty, Huber
by one game.
Yeah, they lost to the Raiders.
The Raiders,
yeah, they would beat
the Raiders. They're in. So.
They're in. So I think they took a step back in their offensive production last year, but they'll come back. I mean, it happens. I mean, people.
I think Eckler missed a few games, didn't he?
He did.
Eckler. So that hurts.
Yeah, and they were, and like every team, like every great team, they'll have a bounce back year, and I expect that defense to be at least top five next year with those two additions on there. And they're kind of a defensive team too. I mean, even people talk about their offense, but they're a defensive team that can actually get after the quarterback. And with Khalil Mack on that team, whoo boy, two bookends that could rush like that. It's going to be.
Yeah, so you mentioned it. The only thing you really have to worry about with Khalil Mack, it's never his production when he's on the field. No. It's only health.
Yes.
So if he stays healthy, like you said, that's a big if. If he stays healthy, that's going to be a great defense. Yeah. But with the Broncos, that's not, like people were saying, you know, Russell Wilson is probably regretting rescinding his no trade clause because they got Mack now. Russell Wilson is not afraid of Khalil Mack. He was facing some good pass rushers out there in the NFC West. So this is not, I mean, that wouldn't have ever been a reason he wouldn't have come to the Broncos. The Broncos' offensive line is solid.
That's what I was about to get to. Their line is not bad at all. Yeah. So all you need is a few, and he can. And people forget Russell Wilson can run. So if Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa come down, there's a free space either or right down the middle. So he's going to take it.
And I'm not hating, no question. That's a formidable defense now. Mack, he's a baller. I fully understand why Chicago did it though. They are. Like not even hiding the fact that they're cleaning house. They're doing what Washington should have done years back. Like after they lost Kirk and they were no longer in series. Well, Alex Smith gave them some shots here and there, but he was never a guy that was going to really put you over the top. So what Ryan Poles is doing in Chicago is cleaning house and starting over. Washington never did that. They always stay middling, and as a result of that, they don't really get high draft picks. Chicago is going all full on tank mode. Everybody's on the block. Eddie Goldman is an excellent defensive nose tackle, and he's on the block. There's no hiding what they're trying to do. They're tanking, and they're going all in for next year.
Wow, they're just revamping that entire team. I mean, sometimes you have to do that.
I get it. And year one as a GM is when you want to do that, because you've got some more time to go. You don't want to do that like when you're in the middle of it. No. Your job is on the line. This job is not on the line. This is the time to do that. It's a smart move on his part.
Oh, 100%. I was just kind of shocked. I
fully agree with it.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that they did it before the season. Maybe I was like, maybe they probably might do it in the season itself. But
he knows what he's getting into with that roster. See, and when you move a guy like Khalil Mack with that, he's not doing it because of his talent. That contract, though, that was a heavy load to bear. So getting that out, like I said, getting Goldman out too, is a great player. He's going to fall in somewhere and maybe be a Pro Bowl player. It's not the talent. It's the contracts. He's cleaning it out.
And at the end of the day, I also feel that it's a smart. Even though I said what they're doing, I didn't write. It's a smart move, as you just stated, is because of the contracts. Because at the end of the day,
that's it.
You have to manage, and next year's draft is going to be heavily quarterback favored. So if Justin Fields,
So they say.
So they say.
Who knows how these guys are going to play in the season? But that's what they're projecting.
Yeah, so it's like if Justin Fields can't take that next step, they might even draft a quarterback next year and have that cap room just to sign them to a long-term deal.
Yeah. So, he is the guy I think they believe in, though. And I've heard a lot of NFL talking heads kind of believing in this guy. You know how I feel about Ohio State quarterbacks. There's no secret there. I think we're on the same page with that. If I'm them, I might explore looking at somebody late this year just to see what you have there late in the draft at QB. They've got plenty of other holes, so I don't know if they have the picks to spend on that. But if they do have a late, even a 7th round pick, just bring somebody in.
Yeah.
Just to see what's there.
Mm-hmm. I also feel that like transitioning into all these trades and how they're working out. If you go to Washington, right, the Commanders.
We're gonna get into that. Oh yeah, big week for them too.
Yeah, I was. When they said they were going after Russell Wilson, I'm like, okay, you have to shoot your shot. I mean, you have to shoot your shot. And when they said we got Wentz, I'm like,
so let's go ahead and get it. Let's go ahead and go down that road.
Yeah, because I was just like, I wasn't mad at it, and I also wasn't happy. I was like, okay, it's Wentz, right? It's Carson Wentz.
I think you know how I feel about him too.
It's like, but my whole thing is, which Carson Wentz are you going to get? Are you going to get MVP Carson Wentz? Are you going to get the guy who doesn't care about his teammates, Carson Wentz?
Yeah.
And to me, I don't care if you're an MVP candidate. I don't care if you are whatever, but you got to teach your teammates well. And you're in this as a collective team. And yes, you're the star quarterback, but at the end of the day, you are a team. And if the team don't like you, especially your offensive line, you may get some sacks out of nowhere. But I'll put it this way: if you compare the stats, Indy was the 9th best offense in the league, 9th best.
And total offense.
Yeah, total offense. Okay. Yeah, total offense. Total offense were 9th best, and Washington was like 16th when I was looking at the NFL.
I'm surprised they were that good.
Yeah, me too. I mean, but wow. if you compare like the yards and points, I mean, of course they had I think they were 25%. Indy was 25% better in rushing, 25% better in passing. Now my thing is, does Carson Wentz elevate the Washington Commanders to that position or even higher? And when I'm looking at it, I'm like, he makes all the throws. And Washington has apparently the 9th best or the 6th best offensive line or the 9th best offensive line in the league, even with all those turmoils from I think I got it from Pro Football Network. They say they were the 9th best, but I'm like,
now it's going to be hard to project next season though, because they're losing Sheriff. Even
with that, they have Cosmi. Cosmi can come fill that role in, and I think he's
Sheriff is an all-pro. You can't just. That's not something I expect them to just replace, plug and play. Somebody might come in and play okay, but that's a big loss.
It is a big loss if that happened. But I think the way the offensive line coach has kind of, because they had offensive line problems throughout the entire year, and they played pretty decently. And that's what one of the columns were saying is
Yeah,
with
they
all
did.
the troubles they had, they should have put up more points because they kept the quarterback upright. It wasn't that many sacks, that many like, they didn't have that many hurries. So with the productivity of Carson Wentz, does this elevate this team to that level of the ninth best offense or even the eighth best offense? And with Terry McLaurin in it, I think it does because Terry doesn't even really didn't have a quarterback to throw to. No quarterback really threw to Terry. And with Carson coming in, maybe that's his guy. I mean, at the end of the day, like if Carson can make those reads and make the hits, I mean, heck, who knows? But people also say that he doesn't know. My biggest thing is will he be safe? Like, don't make those boneheaded plays that he's known for. And that's the kind of thing I'm kind of skeptical on.
Yeah, something I'm glad you brought up, and I wasn't sure that this was widely known until I saw it reported this week. But this is
Mhm.
something I've always known about him, even back
Mhm.
in the seasons where he was having his best year in Philly when he got hurt. I knew back then that his teammates didn't like him. The receivers really don't like him because they run out, go on and run a good route. You turn around out here breaking the ball, it's not there because he's out running around, thinking he has to make a play. I knew his teammates didn't like him. I don't know what the locker room stuff is about, but that was reported this week that the guys in the locker room he's not likable for whatever reason. I thought, in his early interviews when he's talking about being a good Christian man and all that stuff, I didn't see that until I saw that stuff reported in Philly, and I knew the receivers probably wouldn't like his style of play. But I'm hoping that these two moves in back-to-back years can give him a wake-up call as far as his maturity. Go out there and be more of a leader in the locker room. Maybe his teammates were questioning his leadership. I
Mhm.
can understand questioning his play on the field because he makes boneheaded plays trying to make a play. And I think that comes from when you play at a small school and you're a great quarterback, you go out there and it's on you to make those plays to win games. In the NFL, no quarterback is needed to win the game. We don't need you to go out there and win the game. I've said this before. If you're no team needs you to win the game. They need you to run the play that was called, get the ball to where it's supposed to go on that play. Work your progressions, 1, 2, 3, and check down if you need to. Not run around like a chicken with your head cut off. And that's how he got hurt, scrambling around
Mhm.
trying to run and make a play. Nobody needs you to do that. Run the
Right.
play that was called and get out of there safe and get to the hole and run the
Mhm.
next one. Get the ball to Terry McLaurin. Get the ball to Logan Thomas. Hand the ball off. That offensive line, even with the turmoil last season, they had a great run game with Gibson, who's still learning the position, and Patterson. Like they're set there.
Mhm.
Get the ball to the playmakers. Nobody needs you to do it. Throw
Right.
the ball, hand the ball off, and live to fight another day. If he
And
if he
there's
can do
talks.
that, if he can somehow do it, they'll be great. If he
Yeah.
can do that,
Yeah.
get
There's
out of
talks
his own
about
way. Mm-hmm.
they're talking about Zach Ertz coming to DC to Washington because, and I'm feeling like I don't think that's a smart thing to do
If
because
it's
you
cheap,
do
I'll take it.
if it's cheap, yeah. But I also feel that we have the tight ends to do what we need to do. Like you have,
See, health is now a question with Logan Thomas.
it's not even about Logan Thomas actually.
Who
It's
else?
we have Bates and we have Reyes. And I think and they say that Bates has come into his own, but it's not. But he's no Logan Thomas. I mean, I'll give you that. But
I like Reyes on paper. He looks the part.
he
We'll see how he
does.
develops. We'll see. I mean, he's still a huge question mark though.
I just like him for his blocking. He can block. That's all you need him
Reyes,
to do. Yeah, he's a big dude, man. I mean, he can just block. When he was in, he just blocks. He was a blocking tight end. Just put him as a blocker, and then he can catch too. But I mean, it's hard to transition from people say, "Oh, it's easy. You're a basketball player." I mean, it's two different balls, man, like coming at you. A basketball and a football are two different. But
if I could get somebody with Ertz's pedigree, I don't care that he's late in his career. If I could just have him in the tight end room, I'll take that all day. Again, as long as it's cheap.
as long as it's you, and I think the Cardinals. I mean, I don't know if they're going to trade him or he's on the last year of his
Yeah, I'm
contract.
not sure what that breakdown is either.
Yeah, so I mean, if they're going to get him, I mean, because I would say this: Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz had a really good relationship in Philly, so it only makes sense to have somebody who's comfortable with. But making that move, what does that do to the other players like Logan Thomas, who was your number one tight end and pretty much a top five tight end in the league? I mean, he proved himself that last year. So, or you can do what the Belichick did back in the good old days: have a two tight end set with one Zach Ertz on one side, Logan Thomas on the other, and you have to pick your poison. And
Yeah, and I don't
that's
think that's crazy because they're not deep at receiver. I expect their first pick to go there. If
mhm.
they're smart, they'll do that. They need to get Carson Wentz all the weapons
Yep.
you can get for him because, like I said, the key is getting the ball out of his hands. It'll be better. It'll be easier for him to do that if he has the pieces around him. Right now, it's really just McLaurin. You keep bringing up Curtis Samuel. He can be it. I'm just not in a position mentally where I can count on him
I
yet.
think
We'll see.
De'Ami Brown, that's my guy. I like him from day.
Potential through the roof, but
Yeah, and I
unproven.
think once he develops, because I don't think he has the speed. He just needs the quarterback to get him the ball. And now because they're like, oh, Heineke or is it going to be Wentz? And I'm like, listen, Wentz is a better than Heineke, 100%. But Wentz doesn't have the respect that Heineke has. So that's going to be like a tug and war thing. Is if Wentz puts up points and everything, I think this might go back to the '88 Skins when they won that Super Bowl with Doug Williams and Jay Schrader was their quarterback.
87.
87,
It's that
87.
88 on the crest, but
Yeah, yeah.
because that technically that's when it happened, but it was the 87 team.
But when the '87 team, when they were going through, this is going to remind me of that team, is because you have Doug Williams who came in and Jay Schrader was the guy. He was but no one liked Jay Schrader. No one liked Jay Schrader on that team. And then everybody loved Doug. So I don't want a quarterback controversy.
Oh,
Even
no, there's not going to be. You're not paying Carson Wentz 28 million to have any question in that regard. He's the starter, unquestioned. I don't care if he goes into camp and stinks it up. He will be out there starting on day one, barring injury. And
yo,
I wouldn't be surprised if he stinks it up. By the way, I mean he has a propensity for turnovers. So
yeah, and they're saying that, and it's also, if you look at it, the trade was actually Washington friendly. It's only they only gave up a second and third round, and the third round is only like what, if you play 70% of the snaps, that's when
that can convert to a second round pick.
that can convert to a second round, and also you're not really, and I think even after this year, you can still get a quarterback in the draft if you don't like what he's doing.
Yeah, and their odds to win the Super Bowl somehow got worse when they picked him up. But all that aside, that's true, by the way. Their biggest odds got worse when they got
Wow.
Carson Wentz.
Wow.
So, but that's all speculation. Like I said, I think getting moved in back-to-back years as a starting quarterback, that has to play with your psyche a little bit. It has to be a wake-up call. If it's not, if this doesn't change who he is as a person and as a quarterback, then I think his career needs to be in question at that point. Not only do you cut him if you're Washington, but how can you consider signing this guy next season if he goes out there and he's the same guy throwing left-handed interceptions and still being a bad guy in the locker room? This has to be it for him.
Right. And if he's playing the Eagles twice now, so he has to have more motivation. And Indy, right? And he does play Indy this year too. Yeah. So he's playing he's playing the same team 3 times almost, twice for Philly.
Get it together,
once.
man. I want to believe in you.
Yeah, I mean, he has all the capabilities of being a top 5 quarterback. He has all the capabilities.
Him in college. I like the pick. When they picked him, Goff went first, and then Wentz. I said at the time, I think the Eagles got the better quarterback. Goff has gone further in the playoffs. He went to a Super Bowl, and Wentz hasn't sniffed one as a starter. He has a ring, but I thought they drafted the better quarterback. Hasn't played out that way yet. This is his chance to get it together. And I think with a coach like Rivera, it's a good situation for him to grow. Just follow that kind of leadership and he'll be fine.
And the thing is, he's what, 28 years old?
He's somewhere in there. He might maybe 27, 28.
Yeah. So, I mean, people learn how to be leaders. They learn how to be leaders. Sometimes earlier on in their careers. Natural,
you can learn it.
Yeah. And I also feel that, like, he was put in the spotlight too fast because the Eagles needed a win right away. And with Doug Peterson's offense, they say is complex. He needed to kind of like say, everybody block out the noise, learn what I got to do, and perform. I don't think he learned how to become a good teammate. Maybe now in DC he has a little bit more of like a kind of like an atmosphere where he can kind of like say, hey, I do have a number 1 wide receiver. I do have one of the best running backs in the league, even though Indy had like the best rushing attack ever. But Taylor did have its struggles. but now you have actually, yeah. If McKissick comes back, I mean, he has so much talent around him, and if the 11th pick, I agree with you, they should go receiver because you don't know what you have in your other two receivers. You just don't know. You have to draft the best wide receiver if he is available. And I think if this doesn't change his psyche and the way he comes out, you may have to look at another one next year. You just have to. I just hope you don't need to. But if he doesn't take that next step into becoming a leader, then it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and if they don't make the playoffs, I'm drafting a quarterback no matter what. I might even keep him and draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
If they make the playoffs and lose in the first round, I'm drafting a quarterback.
Yep.
Because and with receiver this year, well, before we get it, we can run down their list of draft needs next show. We're running out of time in this segment one, but I wanted to throw a question at you because you brought him up maybe a week and a half ago, and Amari Cooper, them making that move. What do you think about that?
I would love that move. If they got Amari Cooper, man, heck, that compliments Terry. What has he done wrong with Dallas? All he did was perform, and he killed us. He killed us. Yeah. So it's like this. If you're a defensive coordinator, who are you going to double? Is it going to be Terry or is it going to be Amari Cooper? At the end of the day, they're both fast and they both have an amazing hands. So if you double Terry, you can take Amari down the field. You can make him do a curl route. And that game is over. And you can shift Amari to a slot receiver too. You can play him in the slot and move Terry to the other side. I mean, you have so many like options. Man, if I was an OC, Jesus, I would tear up teams with just those receivers, just two of them.
Yeah, with Cooper, all things being equal as far as if there were no salary cap or anything like that, he's definitely a player I want to have on my roster. He's an unquestioned playmaker. He's an elite top flight receiver. He will change any offense he ends up in. But with the Carson Wentz move, his contract is so onerous at $28 million. Amari Cooper is making around 20. That eats up a huge chunk in just two positions. So I don't know if they're in a position to make such a move. But with the NFL, the salary cap seems kind of just a suggestion because teams always find a way to make it work. Look at Green Bay, tagging Adams and giving Aaron Rodgers all that money. So
with the release of Landon Collins, they say they have opened up, and that move needed to be made. I mean, I love Landon, but like he didn't grasp the system, and unfortunately, like it's just. You don't pay that guy like a nickel linebacker. I'm sorry.
No, he's kind of a positionless player at this point.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what kind of scheme he ends up in. He's not a safety in the league anymore. He doesn't have after the injuries, he doesn't have that speed anymore. So
Cleveland.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, in all honesty, Cleveland is a quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl too.
I've been saying that for like I'm not a Baker guy. But with them getting dumped on here lately, it's kind of making me turn around and kind of root for him. Like I want him to get it together because he's really getting dumped on a lot here lately, especially after the Odell thing. Odell getting a ring now, getting out of Cleveland, getting a ring. Kind of starting to feel sorry for him. So Baker, I'm rooting for you, Baker. Turn it around, man.
Baker's worst enemy is Baker.
Yep. He's a shorter Carson Wentz. They get in their own way. Just run the play. Don't make a play, run the play.
Just run the play. And if you need to make it, you can make it, but don't force yourself to do it. If you can prime example, and we can if we have time.
I got one more topic and we can wrap up the segment with that in about 5 minutes.
Gotcha. So be like Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow takes the sack because he has confidence in himself to come back and make another play. Even though but that's also that they have a really good defense.
And he's just a cool customer, Joe Burrow.
Yep.
He doesn't get rattled, man. He's
a cerebral man. He's just that's going to be a great. You know how that AFC West is going to be awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Like and I'm calling this right now. Kansas City is not as great as people make them to be. They're not as good. I'm sorry. Like that Super Bowl they won, I think it was kind of on their defense wasn't even that good.
Well, they won it on Mahomes' rookie deal, so that team was more complete around him. Now that he's getting paid, it's hard to bolster the roster like it was before. So you see that's a kind of a common trend. Even Russell Wilson won his Super Bowl on his rookie deal. So that's just when you have a stronger team around a quarterback who's good, it's easier to get there. But
but it is the thing. What did you want to?
But the last topic we can wrap up with here is Deshaun Watson. He's the grand jury declined to pursue any charges in that case. So his legal troubles are over. He's still got the civil cases pending, but that's not as much of a concern to teams here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Washington went ahead and moved on from that because they probably got word that he has a no trade clause too. Nobody's choosing to come to Washington. He probably wouldn't have made that choice either, even if they throw all the ammo at the Texans. So they moved on. He's on the market now, and teams are starting to go heavily into pursuit. What do you think he's going to end up?
Me personally, if it's hard because which team wants him? Which team really
he wants to go? It's his call.
Yeah, where does he want to go? And if I were Deshaun, I would say I want to go to a team that can win and win consistently. And
that's exactly what he said.
Yeah, and the issue with that is all the teams that win consistently have good quarterbacks. Like, where is he going to go? But if Cleveland, I'm going to say this, if Cleveland is listening, I know you guys invested in Baker Mayfield, but I think the Baker Mayfield train has set. I think needs to get parked, and it's Deshaun Watson. Get that dog back in the dog pound because he will change your team overnight. Overnight. One of my friends texted me and said, "Do you think Washington pulled the gun on Wentz, knowing that Deshaun Watson's deal?" I was like, "Listen, we as a team have gone through so much turmoil. We don't need more turmoil to follow. And yes, even though it's civil, it's still a problem because it's still you have to worry about that. You don't want to have no issues or anything. So this, as you said, Dale, safe pick. It was a safe pick." It wasn't a risky pick. It was a safe pick.
In the regard of just landing a quarterback, it was safe. But it was a risky pick and a risky decision because he's such a volatile player. He's so up and down, so hot and cold, usually cold. That's a risky pick in that regard. With Deshaun Watson, though, they made the right call in moving on from that because, like I said, it was a choice. Nobody's choosing to go to Washington. And with Carson Wentz, people have said that Indy was going to release him, so you could have just let him release him and then sign him at that point. At that point, he would have had a choice. And at that point, he wouldn't have chosen to come to Washington. So if you trade for him, it doesn't give him the choice. He didn't have a no trade clause. So trading for him, he has to go there. Hey, you're here now, buddy. Like it or not.
You're not going to go anywhere.
You're Commander Wentz. So welcome to town, buddy.
But you know what, though? I would say this. If the Giants there, too, I mean, the Giants need a quarterback because Daniel Jones is not. And Deshaun Watson will hands down beat out Daniel Jones. There ain't no question. I mean, Daniel Jones is a farce. I never liked him. He got so much hype. I was just like, stop it. Like, you're not as good as you think you are. I even hate to say this. He can't even go to the Jaguars. If the Jaguars
I'm not a Lawrence guy, so I agree with that.
I mean, listen, Lawrence is a good quarterback, but you have to understand that Deshaun Watson, geez, you go from mediocre to superstar in a matter of minutes. I mean, you have to build around him because that line is horrendously bad. The Jacksonville offense is horrendously bad. But with Doug Peterson there, it's gonna be different. Yeah. And I feel that if they want, I understand Trevor Lawrence is the future, but you can't. How long are you going to wait for him to develop? Like how long are you going to do that? You need a veteran presence, and I think Deshaun Watson can help him become that one. And I think he just needs a better surrounding to take himself out of that because he gave his blood, sweat, and tears to Houston, and Houston never really did anything for him. I mean, they really didn't build around him. They really didn't do anything. So he needs a team that's like, how do you say, kind of like a motherish kind of hug. He just needs a hug when he goes into a team that he's wanted, not just, hey, go fend for yourself.
Now, wherever he ends up, he's definitely going to be wanted. He's highly sought after. Yep. And to me, I think I've made it clear how I feel about him too on previous shows. To me, he's a black Carson Wentz. He's one of those guys that gets in his own way, trying to scramble around and make a play instead of just running the play. He has all the ability in the world. He has a strong arm. He can scramble. He can run. I don't want him scrambling around and running. I just want him to run the play. His numbers look fantastic. He even had a couple of winning seasons in there, but his last season as a starter, they were 4-12. And I think and people blame that on the lack of weapons. But I watched him that season. A lot of those bad plays were on him. A lot of that 4-12 was on him. Running around too much. thinking he had to make the play too much. Don't come in there when you're in that situation and do that, man. You're 26 now. 26, he's young, man. I mean, that's
Wow,
crazy.
26.
But he's been in the league long enough to know better than to think he has to do that anymore. I expect him to be the same kind of player, though, until he has a lack of success in his new situation. Then he'll turn it around. I hope I'm wrong. I like to root for black quarterbacks, so I hope he goes in it and he has. After sitting out a year, though, it's hard to know if he made any growth in sitting out a year.
I mean, he's an athlete, right? Most athletes, when they sit out for a year, they're just focused on coming back. But it's hard with his troubles. And I told everybody this. I was like, don't rush to judgment. Do not rush to judgment, because that's why we have a court system. Even though I don't like the court system, the way sometimes it handles it, let it proceed the way it proceeds, because people were dogging that poor man about, oh, I was like, you have no idea what the heck happened. Okay. Stop like trying to poo-poo him.
Yeah.
All right. Like, and I'm glad they didn't press charges, because I knew something was up. Like, you don't get people out of the woodworks, man. Let's be real here. You don't get like 13, 16. That means you're a serial person. Like, you're a serial, like bad person. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, I know the grand jury declined to press charges, but I'm going to reserve comment on as to whether or not he actually did anything. I don't know. I know
exactly.
He doesn't have any legal concerns anymore. So
yeah,
you got a last word on this. We can wrap up this segment.
I'm done, man, because I think in all honesty, he may end up somewhere in the NFC East.
Maybe. The Giants? The Eagles have been thrown out there, so it's possible there too. I think his number one choice might be Seattle. That's just a guess. I don't. Maybe
that's a really good, because
just throwing that out there.
Well, no, that's not a bad idea, because if you look at it, like, he fits that mold perfect. He fits that offense perfectly well. Yeah. Fits it perfectly well.
Yeah. So, and with a coach like Pete Carroll too, you never know. We'll see. We'll see how that all plays out. Should be coming up here sometime soon. That'll be turning out
next week, maybe even next week or week after. Yeah.
But yeah, we can go ahead and wrap up. Well, one last thing. Bold prediction. Do the Commanders make the playoffs next season?
Yes. I say yes.
I'm going to say yes because of Ron Rivera. I think the team knows his job is on the line. I think the team is going to go all out for him because he's the coach you love to play for. They don't want him to lose his job. So I think they're going to make it because of him, not because of Wentz. I think they'll make it because of him. So
I'm going to say it's because of Chase Young. I'm going to say Chase Young.
That's a bold prediction.
That's a bold prediction. I'm going to say because Chase Young bought into the hype. I was listening to Charles, man. He's like, he listened to his own music, and he got a big head, and that's why he wasn't playing. And I agree with that. That's why he's going to prove his critics wrong next year, and he's going to have a double-digit sack.
I was his biggest fan until I heard him interviewed, and his interviews, he doesn't seem to get it. I'll reserve judgment there. We'll see how he recovers and comes back next year. I'm rooting for him. So yeah. So that's all we got here for segment one. We're going to jump into our usual Wizards talk. We got some MLB talk coming up. Nuggets, give the Avalanche a shout out, and the Caps, who I think won. The Caps won last night in overtime.
They did.
Money on it. I won money, so we can get into all that next segment. Talking Hats. We'll be right back in segment number 2.